6:30 and was like changing time, that was my thought. Sometimes I was thinking 5 o'clock was probably more realistic, but maybe for 4:30, but then we have the various technical things. Actually, not too bad if we were successful. um,
I feel like I sort of mentally, a 17-minute recording will take us 3 hours. So by that time, we actually were quite fast.
yes, like a project. And also I just came up on climate work Should I let you know when I want to talk in here? Greetings, IA. Glad to see you. How are you? I hope you're faring well and that you're not too exhausted and have been able to have a little bit of rest. I don't know if you were trying to say anything or not, or if you can hear me. It looks like you're muted there, which may be exactly what you want right now, or not.
Okay, so we just found out about this meeting 2 seconds ago. So,
Now I can hear a very little bit of kind of off and on bubbling sound coming through.
Anjali, I think we're here now. Satyana is coming in just a moment. And Maisie is also here, but not on the camera.
Yeah.
Just chase myself. Oh, you don't do Terry very much.
Well, they went away.
Oh, they've gone. Okay, do you need a drink? I assume.
Hmm?
Do you need a drink? Okay. I guess we won't be doing puja tonight. I said to you just to meditate now in the class. You know, because it's quite late already. That's right. In the Theravada, yeah. They possibly have more. There's one of the schools that have 350 or 60 or something. Yeah, there's 314, one of them more, I think one or two of them less. Similar, you know, very similar. Yeah. Okay.
Would you like some?
They were here. Thank you. And then they went away.
We've got the monastery back. And does this mic need to be turned on again, or?
Very good. Can hear
No, it's on. Okay, greetings. It looks like we've got you back. I was just wondering because the Wi-Fi is so poor right here. Are we coming through okay? I think that we might have a better chance to be able to hear you and to keep the connection if we both turn the camera off.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I really love to see you. I do. And people say so much with their body language that comes in even through the Zoom. And I always like to look out for that. And I won't be able to now with the audio only. So I want to ask, especially like to be sure to say something or to give some other signal through the chat, maybe. I don't know if we can see the hands up, just seeing your icon here or not. Would you try to put your hand up on the, and we'll see whether it shows on the icon here?
Yeah, good.
Yes, okay, all right, good. I'm glad to know that. So please feel free to use that and to make sounds that otherwise be known through your postures. So let me just check in. This is our session number what?
So if somebody raises their hand, I'll raise the hand.
Okay.
So we did have one directly after. 4.5 was before. Excuse me? There haven't been any on Zoom since after the ordination. Let me just check in. Is it so that we haven't had any studies together since after the ordination, that we've just been having studies here? Was session 4.5 before the ordination the last one that we had together on Zoom?
Yes, that's true.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much. So I'd like to acknowledge then that we're now then up to session 5 in terms of what's on the Zoom, but we have had a session 5 and a session 6 here together following the ordination. And so this would actually be then Vinaya Studies session number 7. So just to acknowledge that. And for our studies after the ordination that were not on Zoom, I'd just like to go over now. Seminary Tavira is capturing. We reviewed the main topics that are good to go over just directly after Bhikkhu or Bhikkhuni ordination. And I'd like to ask Seminary Tavira to bring up, I think we had located 5 of those topics, and just let know what those are, and would you be willing to recite them? And then or if you say it, I can just repeat after you, and then just to acknowledge where we're at with regards to those topics. Please go ahead, Seminary Tavira. Things to be done immediately after Bhikkhuni ordination was the way it was phrased. Going over parajikas, and we acknowledged that actually we went over parajikas beforehand. So not that we shouldn't continue to study about them, we should, but we did go over them entirely beforehand. Determining cloth requisites. So yes, we did that. We studied about the 3 robes and the 5 robes and the various kinds of robes that can be determined. We learned what are the 6 items that are mentioned in the Bhikkhuni Vibhanga, which is then the 5 robes plus the Nisidanang. 5 robes of the Bhikkhuni plus the Nisidanang. And so then the bowl, pata, and chiwara in this category then being the bowl plus the those 6 things made of robe cloth, including the nisidanang. And so both those here determined all their cloth requisites as far as I know, except for Bhikkhuni Dhammawada, who determined a yam that's at the monastery from afar. But the contents of the yam are still to be, I think there's a plan to be relinquishing them, but they were not determined. So just to acknowledge that. And so we went over determining, which is in Pali. Aditan. And then we also went over like undetermining or relinquishing, which is Pachuttarana, yes. So we went over both of those. And then we also went over shared ownership, which is in Pali, shared ownership. Oh, I'm asking them here and they're, what is that in Pali again? And remember in your Bhikkhuni Patimokkha 4th edition, they're right there. Can you see it? You're trying not to look? Oh, go ahead and look. You can look. Vikapana, yes. And then how to even to undo shared ownership. And we went over which was the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha precept that's related to that. Was that the Vikapana Sikapadang among the Pachityas, number, oh, do you remember the number of the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha precept, the Vikapana Sikapadang? I'm thinking 140. What? Is it 140? Okay. So we went over that. And that deals with when there's shared ownership and then you take a robe under shared ownership without the permission of your co-owner. And it has been relinquished. There has been a Pachutana. Vassa. Vassa.
Could you get me one too? I see it's 140. Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
They've dropped.
140, read that one. Should any bhikkhuni herself having placed robe cloth under shared ownership with kapana, with a bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, female probation or male novice, female novice, then make use of it without the ownership being rescinded, it is to be confessed. It's interesting that we can share robes.
And when we last studied, then we had about a request to go over some of the things that is and seminaries with regards to particular common life topics related to food and related to these kinds of things. So if we're ready, then we might move on to this. But I do want to just check back in with Seminary Tavira again about those topics. I think there's one that we haven't covered yet, actually. It's just coming to mind, and that's about the medicines and tonics. Marking cloth requisites, yes, we learned binduing, and then we learned the determining with regards to the chiwara and cloth requisites, the aditan again, and please then be sure you don't have anything that's now allowable. Exactly, yes. get in that you have that's consumable is offered or has been offered, like medicine, tonics, these things. And I'd like to say, so yes, we haven't gone over that one. Just acknowledge that and also have to wait in terms of the time grace. Fully responsible for those precepts. But until you've learned them, then not yet so. It's not a fault for you. And you have a grace period of, what does it say in the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha? Do you know? It mentions in Bhikkhuni Patimokkha what that period of time is. Like, does it say something like 1 or 2 fortnights? Which means having heard the Patimokkha recitation. And this goes back to, of course, oral traditions, because they didn't have texts. And so it was through hearing the recitation of the Patimokkha then that one learned, as well as through personal instruction. But we said there is one category of the precepts for which this is different. That is immediately effective from the time of the completion of your upasampada. Which precepts category is that?
Parajika.
Parajika, yes, exactly. So correct. So that one, if you haven't already learned the parajikas beforehand, then you're supposed to be instructed in them immediately after. And so there's not an exemption for those. But for all the other categories of precepts, then you have, did you find it, Venerable Kachayana? 2 or 3 recitations of the Patimokkha, yes, which means it means 2 or 3 fortnights, and a fortnight is 2 weeks. So that means like potentially up to how long?
30 days.
Potentially up to 6 weeks, or approximately so. Supposing your ordination was the day before, no, just the day after the full moon,
2 months.
which was actually the case for you, then it could be even 6 weeks. Yeah. So that's the period of time. So for your own study, then that's important. And also, I hope we had aspired early on to not only have the Patimokkha recitation directly after the inauguration of the Sima, but to be able to do so again during the Vassa in this upcoming fortnight. So I know everyone here has worked so hard. And I feel so sympathetic. I myself have not had a day off in a while. And I don't want to say I've been working hard, but my goodness, I feel tired. And I think good if we can to have. Yes, but we had even aspired to get together for it if it were possible, not necessarily to go to the monastery, but either they come here, or we had earlier talked about, because we'd be going there for the ordination, then hoping those at the monastery would come here for it if it were possible. But that was something that we just aspired to earlier on when we were having our Vassa planning. And of course, we want to be adaptable to conditions. So do you have anything else on your list there? Okay, so that was the list. And so I'd just like to take a little bit of a pause for just a moment now, and also to acknowledge that I'm sorry for being late today. I just ran into a wall of tiredness yesterday, and I was also with news about Jeannie and various friends and Jill and all of that. And then not until this morning after breakfast did I begin to prepare the slides for my UTBSI presentation, which is going live at 5 a.m. Tomorrow morning. So we got it recorded after
11 tries of various technical things, and hopefully it's uploading here now. And thank you very much to everyone for your patience. And so let me just do a check-in now with regards to the topics that were brought up that we have gone over in our last 2 sessions, with just consideration to those at the monastery who weren't present for them. But I'd like to say what we were going over in Bhikkhuni Patimokkha is on what pages? Pages 132 and 133. And so you'll be able to just glance at and look over what it is that we were learning and reviewing and practicing and working with during this time. So I just want to have a brief check-in before we potentially go on to our next topic. Before we hopefully with Vassa Ditan, check any important outstanding doubts or in regards to what we've gone over. Yes, please, Venerable Damawara. Yes. Sonoma-Giri, which means Sonoma Mountain, as it's in the Sonoma Grove, adjacent to Somo village. Sonoma Mountain is Somo. So the name is Dhammadharini Sonoma-Giri Bhikkhuni Arama. And so in their case, then that's suitable to use that full name at this time for entering into the Vassa and use the Arame. And previously, Dhammadharini had Dhammadharini Vihara. In that case, to use Dhammadharini Vihare. Yes. And there are other names that places can go by. And our Aranyabodhi Hermitage is called Aranyabodhi Hermitage. Venerable Kachayana, did we use Pali for that? Avase. Certainly it is an Avase. I'll say it actually Aranya, like, or used to be, and some still are really Aranya. Our Aranya Bodhi has the name Aranya, but it's not, in Vinaya terms, it's not actually Aranya. It is absolutely, our space here is in less than 1 kilometer from the nearest village, which means the nearest lay house, with Susie's place just across the creek. And so we're within a kind of SEMA this is an owned property. It's a private forest preserve, and it has an legally established lay dwelling, as well as numerous other lay dwellings that are quite close to us here. So it's not actually the Vinaya definition of Aranya. It's a nice name that was given to it, but it's not actually wilderness. For that reason, if it were actually Aranya, if it was in wilderness, then we could say Aranya Senasane, which means that's called wilderness dwelling or wilderness lodgings. So in Sri Lanka, there are quite a lot of those. And so that it has a name sometimes. And then it has the words Aranya Senasane, which then would be used for then where one is entering one's Vassa. So there are other words additional to what we find here in our handy Bhikkhuni Patimokkha 4th edition handbook. There's so much more that's there. This is meant to be just a useful handbook that was actually, the size was planned to be able to fit in the pocket of your angsa or of your of your jacket originally. So there are other words there. And if nothing else in Pali, if there's a monastic dwelling, then avase can be used. And for the Vassa, avasa, avasa, that means the Vassa dwelling. The Vassa abiding, Vassa abode, the avasa. This is where we get the word wat, which is so popular. And in contemporary use in much of Southeast Asia, then wat is actually often used. It's used quite regularly for what are town lodgings or village lodgings, but it may also be used for what are considered forest monasteries, which would be called wapa, which means forest wat. So I know some Thai friends call this wapa aranya bodhi aram. I may not be pronouncing it perfectly. Wapa aranya bodhi aram. So in that case, they're adding arama on there, which in Thai is used sometimes related to the wapa. Arama is normally for more of a developed garden rather than wild forest. So I think it's fine for you to use Aranyabodhi Hermitage here. And if you'd like to say Aranyabodhi Hermitage Avase, as Venerable Kachayana is remembering us using Avase, then that's just fine. And noting again that we went over the Sima here, the boundary, and we went over the text that you could use in terms of rather than te masam, which means 3 months. Did you note down? I think you had both noted down what you'll say instead of 3 months. The end, right? The last month. Pachimamasan. Pachimamasan. Yes. Yes. So Pachimang masang. Yes. Upemi. Yes. Are you ready? Do you have questions? More? Okay. Do you feel ready to go ahead? And could we put well, maybe the both of you could come together. Would you be happy to come and light the candles? And so now we're inviting Venerable Bhikkhuni Dhammanusari, Venerable Bhikkhuni Dhammawada to come to light the candles. And then you can say Namo Tassa and come together. Light the lighter candle first. And you can each light one. Sure? Okay. Yes, you can touch her. It's very traditional during your first few weeks with new robes that your Sangha members are continuously helping you and putting them on and adjusting them for you. This is absolutely traditional. Normally for at least your first month of wearing with new robes. Yes. Okay, so I'd like to invite everyone here and also everyone who's with us at the monastery to really think very kind and loving thoughts towards Venerable Bhikkhuni Dhammanusari and Venerable Bhikkhuni Dhammawada, with thoughts of love, kindness, supportiveness, and blessings, and holding their intention, resolution, their adhitan at heart together. Please go ahead. They're bowing first. Now, Venerable Dhammanusari is taking the lighting candle to light, and Venerable Dhammawada is touching her shoulder to be joining in lighting the candles in front of the Buddha image together. And then you can bow 3 times, come back to your seats, and then recite Namo Tassa together.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Yes.
Imasmen aranya bodhi vasang Imasmen aranya bodhi hermitage pavasang imang pachimang masang vasang opema imasming aranya bodhi hermitas bhavasa avase imang pachimang vasang ope mang imasmeng aranya bodhi vartang avasang imang pachimang masang wasa ope ma.
Sadhu, sadhu, anumodami. You have now officially and formally entered your first Vassa as bhikkhunis. Welcome to come back to your seat amidst the Sangha. Anumodami. Yes, and in the case of Vassa, then there's a short A that gets combined with the long A, which makes it, rather than Vassa awase, it makes it was awase. Thank you for the question. So we have now how many bhikkhunis with Dhammadharini who have entered into the Vassa? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the number that Seminary we see Seminary Dhammadina had heard that we would then be having 6, so she was wanting to invite all 6. But I'm very happy that hopefully 3 may be able to go. And I feel really good and comfortable with the process that we went through and decision that we reached in terms of honoring our Katina donors and really being considerate and also very much wanting to support and be present for these very important moments for our Sangha, and especially related to the Pavana Society, with which we've had such long and strong connection, to be able to offer this support. Hopefully, right now it's still all in the realm of imagination, but hopefully so. So now I'm thinking about going ahead with some of the topics that were of question. And 2 of them that were brought up specifically were with regards to food and cooking. And then also with regards to the earth and plants. As places where the bhikkhu and bhikkhuni precepts are different than those for the seminaries. So now I don't know if we're on screen share or not. So it keeps dropping off when Venerable Kachina is trying to screen share. So let me just let you know what they may be sharing. Shall we take a look first at plant life? Have you seen anything about plant life in your Bhikkhuni Patimokkha? Venerable Kachina is nodding. What do we see about plant life or seeds in our Bhikkhuni Patimokkha? So for a seminary, is there any discipline within the 10 precepts related to the plant life or seeds? Your first precept, Panatipata Veramani Sikapat. Does that relate to plant or seed life? No, it doesn't. Is it only about human life? Like the first or the second Parajika is specifically with regards to human life. And then in our Bhikkhu Bhikkhuni discipline, then there's another precept related to the animal's life. And then there's other precept related to the, I'm remembering like Bijagama Buddhagama, which would be Bijagama, seed life, and Buddhagama, plant life. What are you finding, Venerable Kachina?
6 when you're saying.
Venerable Kachina is finding which one, Bija or Buddha? Buddhagama Sika Padang, which is Bhikkhuni Pachitiya number 107. And does it have a note that it's also, that it's a shared sadharana, a shared precept? Oh, it has a little 11 after it. Okay. So then what we're doing right now is we're going on Sutta Central, the Bhikkhu Vibhanga, into the confession, Pachitiyas, and then we're going down to number 11, which we should be able to find. Oh, and look just above it, then also digging the earth. So we find, and what's above that? Okay, so go down again. So we have the digging the earth here, which is the bhikkhu. And can you blow that up a little bit for us so we can see it better? Okay, so look on the top there, it says BUPC 10, which means what? BUPC 10. Bhikkhu Pachitya 10. Yes, exactly. And then it's got over to the right says PTS 4.33, which shows you, at least in theory, where you can find this in the Polytext Society text. And then there's one of our primary reference points, because the English translations may vary. Then you have, can we hear Ayasobana's pronunciation of this? The name of the Pali for this precept?
Number 10 or number 11?
Number 10, Bhikkhus number 10.
Patavikanana Sikapada.
Thank you. So does anyone know what Patavi is? Patavi,
Earth.
Patavi, earth. Yes, even Patavi is the name of earth goddess in Southeast Asia. And then the Kanana, so that not is giving you an ing form here, I think. And so then in your Bhikkhuni Patimokkha, the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha, digging the soil, okay. And I also to say what that K that up online here or no? Through clicking on it or not? Oh, I see. We'd have to open it up. Okay. So then also going down from here, then we find what is BUPC 11. Venerable Dhammanusari, what does BUPC 11 mean? Bhikkhu Pachitya. Yes, and its name then in Pali is what is Buddhagama? Yes, Buddhagama. Buddhagama. Buddhagama is plant life, and here it's also translated as vegetation. And so you should also be seeing this then in your Bhikkhuni Patimokkha 4th edition as well, because these are shared precepts. Among that, like 60% of those that are shared between the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis. And scroll down a little bit more. Okay, so then I'd like to go back up then to the which number is it in Sikapadang? 107 in the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha. Let's open it up and take a look here. So we're clicking on Bhikkhu Pramali. And we find, hold on, adjusting, go down a little bit. I mean, the other down. Yes, thank you. Okay. A little more up. So this is then the Buddhagama Vaga. So this whole subchapter is actually named after this precept here. So the Buddhagama Vaga, then it's called the subchapter on plants. And now we can go down a little bit more. So Buddhagama and Vaga is it's like a chapter, but here it's a subchapter. So Buddhagama Sikapada. So I want to then ask Ayasopana, with regards to our Bhikkhuni Patimokkha 4th edition and this name, in case you were to injure a plant and you wanted to confess this Pachitya to another one of your fellow bhikkhunis, then when you were speaking about this precept, how would you speak about it? What would you say in Pali?
Bhutagame Pachitya.
Yes. So that's then Sikapada is then the precept, and Buddhagama is then the name of the precept. So let's take a look at it. Okay. At one time when the Buddha was staying at Alavi in the Agahalava shrine, the monks were there doing building work, and they were cutting down trees and having them cut down. Then when a certain monk was cutting down a tree, the deity that lived in it said to him, "Venerable, don't cut down our dwelling because you want to build a dwelling for yourself." Here, then, what is the deity? And what is the tree? Now, we talked about what is tree before. Actually, I didn't acknowledge it, but we went over the three, the Nisaye. We also went over during our last two study sessions here. And then we learned that Ruka Mula, the fourth Nisaya, that Ruka means tree and Mula means roots. Yes. And also it's used for what is like basic or original or fundamental, as root is sometimes used in English as well. So then this is, it says here, let's look what kind of being is this deity. This is a devata, is what it says. A devata dwelling in the rukke is in the tree. So the devata said to the monk, "Venerable, don't cut down our dwelling because you want to build a dwelling for yourself." But not taking any heed, he just cut it down. And it says he hurt the arm of that deity's child. My goodness. So the deity thought, why don't I just kill this monk? But then it reconsidered. It wouldn't be right to just kill this monk. Let me instead tell the Buddha about this matter. And it approached the Buddha and told him what happened. Atakosa devata yena bhagavata ten upasankame tva bhagavato etamatang arochesi. And the Buddha said, "Sadhu, sadhu devate." It's addressing, well done, deity. It's good you didn't kill that monk. If you had killed that monk, you would have made much demerit. The tree over there is empty. Take that as your dwelling. But then people complained and criticized the monks. How can the Shakyan monastics cut down trees and have them cut down? They are hurting life with one sense. So one sense, life with one sense here. Ekindriyan. And here, what's the word being used for monastics? Samana, Sakyaputya. So Putta is a word for sun or for the air, sometimes also used for the, long ago when the family didn't have a male heir, sometimes then they would legally designate a female heir, who would also be known as Putri or Putti. And in Sri Lanka these days also, I saw in the villages, and sometimes the people also call their daughters Putta, as well as their sons. So Samana Shakya Puttiya, so sons or heirs of the Shakyans, or Samanas. So the monks heard the complaints of those people, and the monks of few desires complained and criticized those monks. How can those monks at Alavi cut down trees and have them cut down? Is it true, monks, that you do this? It's true, sir. Sachang Bhagavati. The Buddha rebuked them. Foolish men, how could you do this? People regard trees as conscious. Then we find this word Mokha Purisa, which means like ignorant man, ignorant person. And then it says that the jiva, life, sanyino. Sanya is perception. So they said that people perceive that trees have life, that they are alive. And then it says this won't give rise to or increase people's confidence. Netang moga purisa apasanya nang pasataya. And then it has pay ... And in this place, as I mentioned earlier, this is where we actually find the list of reasons for which the Buddha established every single one of the precepts. And it's really important to know what they are, because otherwise they disappear in the ... But in terms of like the principles underlying the precepts, then this is where we find them. And so it's really important. I would like you to memorize those so you can find them in your text. When you look at Vibhanga to the first precept, you can find it spelled out there. And then almost entirely in the books that we have. And I'm not sure why online, because it doesn't take much more space. But the reason for abbreviating is, I think, was done to save space in the textbooks. But good to know. I would like you to memorize, remember what those reasons are. We did go over them already last time. And I'm not going to quiz you on them this time, but I might next time. So then it says, and amongst this training rule, or this Sikkhapadang precept, or base for training, should be recited like this. Then if a monk destroys plants, he commits an offense entailing confession. So let's look down then how this is defined. So Buddhakamo Nama, what is called plant life, defines a propagation. Pancha bijajatani, propagation from roots. Mula bijang. Now mula is familiar to you. Bija is normally used for seeds, but also just like roots, root is used in various ways. Seed is also used in various ways. So propagation from roots, mula bijang, propagation from stems, kanda bijang, propagation from joints, palu bijang, propagation from cuttings, aga bijang. So just as a comment, the historians say that the time of the Buddha was one where agrarian culture was really growing a lot. And so then these methods of propagation, these methods of being able to grow, were really very important to people. So propagation from cuttings and propagation from seeds. So here you have a kind of interesting bija meva. So this is then bija is meaning propagation, and bija is also meaning then seed. Bija meva panchamang, these 5. Then it defines what propagation from roots is. Mula bijang nama. These are named or said to be of turmeric, of ginger, of sweet flag, of white sweet flag, of attis root, black. How do you pronounce that? Hellebore, kus root, nutgrass, or any other plant produced from roots, that grows from roots. This is called propagation from roots. Then propagation from stems. has the Bodhi tree first. This is the Kanda Bijang. The Bodhi tree, the banyan tree, the Indian rock fig, the cluster fig, the Indian cedar, the portia tree, or any other plant produced from stems. So, you know, for the Bodhi tree then to be transplanted from the Bodh Gaya, Jayashri Mahabodhi, then to grow in Sri Lanka, when we have told Sankamita's story, was that a seed that was transmitted, or how was the Bodhi tree transmitted? Looked like a sapling, but it came from a cutting. From a cutting of the southern branch of the Bodhi tree, according to the story. And so then this is why also then the people believe that that's like a first generation tree, whereas if it came from a seed, it would be a second generation. So they also say this is the original Bodhi tree, because it came from, it's grown up from the branch. So propagation from stems. Any plant produced from stems that grows from stems, this is called propagation from stems. And propagation from joints, palubijang nama, sugarcane, bamboo, reeds, any other plant produced from joints that grows from joints. This is called propagation from joints, palubijang. Then propagation from cuttings is here, agabijang. Shrubby basil, Rajmahal hemp, Vicks plant, or any other plant produced from cuttings. Some of these I'm seeing actually for the first time because I read in the Polytech Society and also some other translations, but I have not yet read entirely Ajahn Pramali's translation here online. So this is good to see. Vicks plant, what is that? Or any other plant produced from cuttings that grows from cuttings. This is called propagation from cuttings. And then propagation from seeds. Bija bijang nama, grains, vegetables, or any other plant produced from seeds that grows from seeds. This is called propagation from seeds. So up above earlier, for one facultied life. What was that in Pali? Saying that it was like one facultied form of life. So this is an old ekindriya, yes. And for human beings, how many faculties are they said to have? Panchindriya, Chat Indriya, lots of faculties. When Abokachan is saying it depends on how you count, with a smile and an Anjali. Yes. So ekindriyan, and which of the indriyas is the plant life? These various kinds of plant life. Which indriya or which faculty are they said to have? Jivindriya, okay, that means life faculty, but there's something more than that. So for the human, which are the indriyas that are generally, when we talk about sense faculties, which are we talk about panchindriya, or I heard someone, maybe Ayasobana, say chatindriya. Would you like to say, what are the 5 or the 6 faculties, panchindriya or chatindriya, for the human being, in the way that this is categorized?
The sight, smelling, tasting, hearing, and touching would be the 5. And then
Yes.
the mind is
Yes. Yes. So also, long ago in the time that I became a novice, then also anyway, Anagarika novice in India, then there's also in South Asia, traditionally there's something that's often memorized when one has their papaja and goes forth that covers these bases. And then this is called Indriya Samvara. Indriya Samvara. And this gets translated as the training in restraint with regards to the sense faculties. So Indriya here is translated as sense faculties. Samvara is
Restraint.
during the time that I was in India, also for some of the Tibetans, then they had this practice even of a kind of chanting that's meant to be like mindful of and establishing the samvara, just to remind oneself of samvara and to be practicing samvara. I'll just give you a little bit of that chant. Venerable China is smiling because they've heard it before. It goes, Samvara, 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 Samvara. You can chat together, yeah, even or just yourself. And you have some time, but then the form of it then is Chakuna Samvara Sadhu. Chakuna is what?
See.
The eyes. The Chaku Indriya. Chakindriya? Chakuna Samvara Sadhu. So sadhu means good. So they say it is good. But then also sadhu in the Indian context also came to mean the monastic. So the samana is because people would say sadhu, sadhu, and the monastics would say sadhu, sadhu. People would say sadhu, sadhu whenever they saw the monastics. Then they came to be called sadhu. So if you go to India, people call you a sadhu. Even for the Jains, the female monastics are called sadhvi, which means sadhu-i, sadhvi, which just means good, right? Good or excellent or awesome or this kind of thing. So sadhu, it's just called sadhus. So it gets translated in the Indian context two ways, that the sadhu, the monastic eye faculty, it gets translated as it is good. They put the two together. It is good, O ye venerables, to train yourself with regards to the eye faculty. This is the basic training in Sila Samvara, is in Patimokkha Sila, and even what's called like root Sila, because there's like the meaning of Sila, that, and then there's the letters and numbers of Sila. So it's basic basis for training in the Sila Samvara. So you're practicing then Samvara with regards to your Sila, your Patimokkha Sila, and then also Indriya Samvara, which means practicing Samvara with regards to your sense faculties. So Chakuna Samvara Sadhu, please repeat after me. Chakuna Samvara Sadhu. Sadhu Sotena Samvaro. What's Sotena? The ear faculty. Right. So again, Chakuna Samvaro Sadhu.
Chakuna Samvara Sadhu.
Sadhu Sotena Samvaro.
Sadhu Sutena Samvara.
And Kanena Samvaro Sadhu.
Ganena Samvara Sadhu.
Sadhu Jivena Samvaro.
Sadhu Jivena Samvaro.
So what is Kanena then? Kanena, huh?
Smelling. Nose.
Kanena. Smelling, yes, the nose, the smell. Olfactory faculty. Is it right? Olfactory? Yes, smelling. With regards to smells, Kanena samvaro sadhu. And then sadhu jivena samvaro. Jivena. Venerable China stuck out their tongue. And then smiled. Exactly. Yes, that's what it is. That's with the tongue with regards to taste. Some people say the gustatory faculty. I'm not sure. Olfactory faculty, gustatory faculty. Is it right? I'm not sure. But some people say like that. With regards to taste, jivena samvaro sadhu. No, it's sadhu jivena samvaro. Yes. And then this particular chant then goes on kayena samvaro sadhu.
Kayena samvaro sadhu. Body.
Kaya is what? The
Body.
body. Yeah. So then it's like the kayena samvaro sadhu then can be connected also with touch faculty. Means what is perceived through the body, not through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, but through the touch through the body. Kayena samvaro sadhu.
Kayena samvaro sadhu.
Sadhu chittena samvaro.
Sadhu chittena samvaro.
But then this final one, actually, then I've learned two different versions of it. One, the final one is sadhu manena samvaro. The other is sadhu chittena samvaro. I can't say which one is original one, but what's the difference between mano and chitta? Manindriyang. Actually, in terms of indriyas, now we'll ask a knowledgeable person here. With regards to indriyas, when we're talking about panchindriya or chatindriya, is it talking about mana or is it talking about chitta?
Mana. Manindriya.
Mana, exactly. So I actually think in terms of what's been passed down in the canonical teachings, then although saying that we're controlling the chitta seems logical in this place here, that probably the proper text here is mana, which would mean that the whole thing goes. And let's see now. Please follow after me, see if we can get through the entirety of it. Very good for memorization. So what's the first? How does it start? Chaku, yes. Chakuna samvaro sadhu.
Chakuna samvaro sadhu.
Sadhu sotena samvaro.
Sadhu sotena samvaro.
Kanena samvaro sadhu.
Kanena samvaro sadhu.
Sadhu jivena samvaro.
Sadhu jivena samvaro.
Kayena samvaro sadhu.
Kayena samvaro sadhu.
Sadhu manena samvaro.
Sadhu manena samvaro.
Sopane or Pramaware, would you recite what are the Panchindriya and the Chatindriya according to the standard list, classical teaching?
Same thing again. Chakuna sadhena.
Just the Indriyas?
Just the list of what the sense faculties are in Pali.
Oh, chaku,
Sota,
sota, gana, jiva, kaya, mana.
Yes. And then when you just put them all together, now we translate, as I mentioned earlier, samvara, we translate generally in English from Pali as restraint. However, I'd like to emphasize again, I'll just tell you from early training in the Indian context, then samvara was and is not only just used for restraint. Samvara is actually used, even it gets translated in other traditions as the vow. The monastic vow is like a summary word for the whole of what makes our training, what our aspiration, inspiration, dedication, resolution, determination, and that's the mind part, and also what our effort then is, what defines our efforts. So it's like the teaching and then what effort is put into the practice. So in a way, it's then used as a word for patipada and for bhavana. But it's like including all of those things together. And so this is from the Indian cultural context and Indian heritage. Then samvara, different monastics of different kinds would be said to have different samvara. So that the way that the things are framed and then what their effort is, might be quite different. And so then this is for us, this is with regards to the basic Buddhist foundations of what it is in the early Buddhist teaching, what is the dedication to the path of practice, what is the like foundational samvara. And again, the way that this gets expounded, then the way that this is defined somehow both internally and externally is with regards to the sila samvara. And then in the explication, it says Patimokkha Sila, but it's not only the Sila of the Patimokkha, it's not only 311 precepts, because we understand they have their letters and numbers. And then also there's what you could call like the spirit behind or within the precepts, and those 10 points that then got the pay and the ... etc. up above, then those are pointing towards that. So then in this case, the ekindriya, and yes, jivindriya is for the life faculty. So that's really important. And like when the Buddha decided that it was time for his parinibbana, then he's said to have renounced, the text says he renounced his jivindriya and his ayu sankhara. So ayu's life, the life formations or life fabrications, and jivindriya, the life faculty. So that's a word that we find here, but my understanding with regards to the plant life is that this is considered then related to that touch, because they don't have eyes, they don't have ears, they don't have a nose, they don't have a tongue, but they feel. And then they're responsive to that feeling. So like also for us with our bodies, we can feel the sunlight, right? Or we can feel the breeze, or we can feel the touch of other beings or even earth or rocks or this kind of thing. And then we're responsive to that. So this is my understanding, and it's big for us. What we see is enormous for us. I think a lot. Some people are more auditory, people are more gustatory, and some people are more into smells, and some people are more into touch, and some people are more into being intellectual. But we have all of these very strongly. So my understanding from previous learning is this ekindriya here is referring to that what's considered to be having a body with a touch, responsive touch faculty. And yes, jivindriya is there. That means that that's considered to be alive, to bear the life faculty. Of course, the life of the devata with the story here is then considered to be additional to that, and the devata's child. So then we have also our Dhammadrini Korwat in this regard, and the things that we learned, the things that we were trained in with regards to the plants. Some of the things that you might have learned or been trained in or observed, then you might have seen something like some bhikkhu or bhikkhuni says, like you're trying to hand grapes with seeds to them and offer them, and they say, "What? Kapiyang karohi," which means like, is it allowable?
Make it allowable.
Would it be made allowable? Would you make it allowable? Kapiyang karohi. And I mentioned with seeds, and so then what the issue here? Because the seeds have the life faculty, and yes, can grow. And I believe this is still very, very important for us, although it seems like some parts of our humanity may have, to a degree, lost our sense about this, or kind of dumbed it down, or numbed our sense about this. But my understanding, what I learned is the people at this time, that was really, really something that they were very much aware of, especially because of the big move towards the agrarian culture, but also there were people who went to the forests and for food. Did they have food forest in the way that permaculture found in some other cultures or not? I'm not sure. Yes, please. Venerable Kachayana is saying there are a couple of questions.
Does reheating vegetable food constitute cooking vegetation?
Does reheating vegetable food constitute cooking vegetation? So how about removing a diseased leaf or branch from a living plant? So with regards to the cooking and also even preparation for cooking, my understanding is that if it's something that has life faculty that could be propagated from whatever it is, whether it's a pit or a seed or it's a whatever that is, if that hasn't already been cut or broken, then that's not allowable for a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni to cut or break that. Accidentally, then it's not a fault, but intentionally, with intention, to do so. And then also for cooking in a way that destroys the life faculty, then also not allowable to cook in a way that is then cutting off or destroying the life faculty. For food that's already been cooked, to reheat it, my understanding of our bhikkhu and bhikkhuni discipline is there's no fault in reheating food. And also with regards to the whole kapya thing, then some places this is not used, but mostly it is. And when something has been kapiyad, then it becomes allowable for the bhikkhu or bhikkhuni then to use that. So there's that, and that's something that we do have in our Korwat. So even in the case that the grape has seeds, then for the way that this is plays out in the Korwat, if there's a whole bowl of grapes that have seeds in them, and the person who is offering cuts open even one of those grapes, saying that they're making that allowable, they're offering it and wishing to make it allowable, then that whole bowl of those grapes, not other bowls of grapes, and not all grapes forever, But that particular bowl of grapes that grape is with, then that all becomes allowable to take. And so this is something really, in a way so delicate that gets navigated and negotiated in our monastic discipline. I know in terms of from the agrarian perspective, then people were like very much wanting to keep the seeds and the many of the things then that could be propagated, the seeds and roots and that they were keeping and storing and using and growing them. And so in that case, then if someone offers something, then what they're doing is they're relinquishing it's like the possession of being able to use those particular seeds themselves, which the monastics recklessly damaging the gardens, fields, plant life, root life, then this is something that comes up then in the monastic discipline repeatedly, that this is something that the people at that time felt really unwell about. And then, of course, there's the part about the life. So I would say as a monastic, if you receive the bowl of grapes and one is cut, then it's allowable for you to take, but doesn't mean that you need to chew up all of those grape seeds. Or can you choose to avoid the seeds and let the life that's there have the opportunity to, if it's able to continue on? These are things for our own personal training that we may consider about, sensitive to the life faculty. But in terms of our patimokkha, if that's been offered in the way that I mentioned, that bowl of grapes has been offered in the way that I mentioned, and even you're not trying to crunch the seeds, but you do accidentally crunch one of the seeds, then will it be a patimokkha fault for you? I see shaking heads. Supposing the bowl of grapes with the seeds is offered and it's not kapiyad, means not made allowable, then if you eat carefully and don't damage any of the seeds, is it a patimokkha offense or not? I see Seminary Tavira is shaking her head and Anagarika Pemaratina is nodding.
Sanchita, if it's unintentional.
What's that?
That's asanchita, if it's unintentional, non-offense.
So Ayasobana is looking down here in this very precept in the non-offense clauses, and here it says there's no offense on apati. Apati is offense. If he says, consider this, give this, bring this, there's need for this, make this allowable. And look here, then it says, imang jana, imang dehi, imang ahara, imina ato. And then we find what we hear often, imang kapyang karohi ti panati, means if this is said. So this is where we find in the canonical text. I've heard some people say that this kapyang thing is not there canonically, it's only commentarial or a practice. I just like to take a look here. The kapyang karohi is actually here. Then Ayasobana was just mentioning if it's unintentional. Would you say that again?
Asanchita.
Yeah. Asanchicha. Accidental. The path, and you brush against a fern, and then stalk of the fern, you were not trying to break the fern, but the stalk of the fern breaks, then is it an offense with regards to this precept? So I see Venerable Kachayana and Seminary Tavira shaking their head. Sure. There are some precepts, even if you do something, even if it's unintentional, mindfulness and of responsibility.
Excuse me,
Thing accidentally. Yes, please.
I want to make this clear to everyone. For example, today, the gardener Chewy trimmed many branches off of one tree for the beauty and health of that tree. He cut lots and lots of branches and made the tree look so wonderful and so much more healthy than it was before. So you could think, well, he's helping the tree. But to my understanding, even if it helps the tree, we're not allowed to do that kind of work.
Yes, that's my understanding also for a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni.
Yeah.
And I think this is a place where, what is it? I personally feel like for something that is meant to help the tree, then this is not wrong to allow someone like our Chewy the gardener to do. I feel like it's fine. That's my own sense about it, is that's fine. And I also want to be sure to mention there are some old monastic practices which some of you have heard of with regards to the trees, especially trees that are, and this is where we come to the Devata part also, but trees that are average human height or taller. So according to the whole idea about the Devatas and the trees, is that Devatas who were once human will sometimes like to stay and inhabit trees and become tree devas. And that they'll normally do that for trees that are like about human height or taller. And that the large, great old trees sometimes even have multiple devatas. So in old Indian culture, especially South Asian culture, then this is really, really big, very, very big. People's belief in the deities, devas related to the trees and especially the old trees. And here in this story, then it mentions also the deva. So that fourth there, one of my friends in Sri Lanka then mentioned for some of the trees in a particular area around old shrine called the Anula Devi Chaitya, that she used to go there, and then like these lights would be around the trees and around the Bodhi tree when she used to go. Now she said she doesn't see it so often, but that was a while back, and even before electricity was generally being used so much around in the villages and countryside in the night. We asked maybe fireflies. She didn't think so. So I'm just sharing with you, even the story of Sujata and giving the milk rice. Then in this story, according to the story, she was going as customary to make an offering to the tree deity of the then what was one of the great trees, and the peepal tree, the banyan tree, especially, these grow old and large and magnificent, and people will go there and make shrines there. So still they do in India commonly. And I think they've been doing it for a long time, it seems like. But for a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni, my understanding is with regards to our korwat, which I learned from other korwat before this, is that if the branch has died, if that limb has died, if the leaves have died on it, if it appears to have died, there's no sign of green in it anymore, and for what has fallen down and broken off, then it's not any fault for a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni to remove that part, or to pick up and move or cut up that part of, like, the dead branch has fallen down off the tree. That's no fault for us to do. I'd just like to check in with Ayasopana and see if that concurs with her memory and her understanding.
Yes, and even one could be more careful, because sometimes part of a plant is broken and falls down. Well, it could start to grow from as a cutting. So one would want to make sure that it doesn't have the ability to grow.
Interesting point, because think back to the grape and the grape seeds, and that being then copied. And when it's been copied, actually still those seeds have the ability to grow. This is what I mean about it being such a delicate and sensitive point, and such a negotiation in a way. And I really believe that something of such importance to the people, and then also among the Buddhists, what we find there is then people felt like, for samanas, like this is something that samanas should have some sense about. Yeah. Even during the time of my surgery, recent surgery on the chest, lumpectomy with biopsy, the surgeon, whilst during the surgery, started to talk to me about this book. What's it? The Life of Trees? What was it? The Secret Life of Trees? The Secret Life of Trees. And she absolutely had an idea that me, as a monastic, as a Buddhist monastic, I mean, she didn't say, it's like she's bringing in all these assumptions, like this is something that I would know about. This is something that I would relate to. And that she felt also like important, and she had read it and she wanted to talk about it during the surgery. So I was talking with her about it during the surgery, and that was so interesting. And what she was saying she had read in the book, I feel like actually really accords with my observation. And over the years being in the forest, there are things that, even being an outdoorsy kid and going out, camping in our weekends and vacations and this kind of thing, there's so much that I didn't know that I've started to be able to sense and see and understand about the forms of life in the forest and their interrelationships, and not only the animals, but very much also the plant life, and just being able to see life and the web and connections of life just so much more, and the relationships between trees and their mom trees and their children, or parent trees and their children, and then the different kinds of their allies that are working together, and then the ones that are not allies and how they're defending together, and so many, very much in line with what she was saying. So interesting. So I'm just using this as an example to say it mentions explicitly that the people long ago at that time had some kind of sense that samanas should know something about this and be sensitive. And it seems to me still, even in Northern California and Santa Rosa Kaiser, in the surgery theater, in the operating room, that you may find the people who absolutely have this similar kind of perception and sense. So I'm just looking, and we have a fox who's just come up and is now on the picnic table, and checking things out, and just come to join. So the fox come in underneath the Dragonfly GMC truck, and then is now coming over, walking up to us, coming up to the door to join Vinaya studies with us. So also, this kind of welcoming and sensitive mind, and like seeing and knowing the living beings as well as the humans. I feel it's so important. It's not that I'm good with this, but it's just more and more I feel this, how important this is. So I see something on the screen here, but I can't quite read it. Please explain the non-offense if he is not mindful. So yeah, we can go back to that. And so some precepts, you do not have any exemption for not recollecting or not being mindful. And sati can mean recollecting, or it can mean being recollected or being mindful. And so this could mean not remembering, or it can mean, as it says here, not being mindful. And so that means in this case that it's not an offense if you're not being mindful, which means you've done something. So there's unintentional, and you could say unintentional and accidental. Then there's also ajhana, not knowing. Not knowing. So means you don't know, as far as I understand it, means you don't know that thing, whatever it is, has life faculty. Now, we here, as far as I know, have not been considering mushrooms or that at least mushroom level fungus to be an exception. However, I did hear about Bodhinyana and Ajahn Brahm. This is anecdotal, so I'm not sure. I need to confirm. But saying that, that type of life, fungus life, is not mentioned here. So fungus life is not included. So if we wanted to collect mushrooms, bhikkhu or bhikkhuni could do so. This is what I heard. It's anecdotal. So far, we have not considered that to be so in our Korwat, although I would say that with regards to cleaning up fungus and mold, we have allowed bhikkhus and bhikkhunis to do that. And they are both fungus, and there are many, many different kinds of fungus, and they are really, really widespread and prevalent. So many kinds. So basically, if we talk about food harvest in the forest, we have not allowed food harvest except for one kind, which is for fruits that are already ripe when there's no one else, no one around, no one there to harvest them. And according to our Korwat, this is related to a practice that we find then also in the Kandakas and in the forest traditions in Thailand, at least some of them. My experience was that some of the monks understood that if there was no one around for particular things in the forest, that they were allowed to collect those things if it didn't involve harming the being, whatever the being may be, Buddhagama or Bijagama, if it didn't involve harming them. And then when there was someone who was able to offer those things, then they could receive them. So then this would be a kind of an exception, because normally for things that are considered to be like owned, then if something hasn't been offered, then a monastic is not supposed to take them. And if they have, then according to some Korwat, then it's not allowable for that monastic then to take them. We have made a Dhammadharini Korwat in this regard, which I shared recently with Samaneri Tavira. And I'd be happy to share with you again now because it's a question that's come up again and again in various ways. Like if people come with groceries and they need help when they're arriving, can a bhikkhuni help carry those groceries? If there's not somebody else available to do so, or will be a terrible burden on the people to do so. And so would you be able to forward to Venerable Kachayana? Okay, good. You can check and see. So then also at our previous vihara, then there were fruit trees and then the fruits were just falling down onto the ground. Was it allowable for a bhikkhuni to pick them up or not? So these types of questions came up. If it's not involving hurting the seeds or damaging the tree like this, and you don't have other people available, ready at hand to be doing that. And we experienced then also sometimes people came and then they felt badly and even sometimes said something like, oh, it's such a pity, oh, it's such a waste, and look, and then these fruits are just falling down and lying down there and you're not even picking them up and like this. So people mentioning this kind of thing, so we made the Korwat about it. Would you like to show that? Oh, yes, please. Okay. So many of these questions came up over several year period that we then reviewed and discussed together, and then we made our own Korwat about it. So that Korwat, I'll just let you know that Korwat that's our working monastic rule. It's not something that's, once it's established, it doesn't gain canonical status. It can be reconsidered on a later basis. As for many of the precepts, it seems like they were also reconsidered and then tweaked, further developed, added to, or even things were established and then they were removed again. It's following basically that same kind of pattern that we understand our canonical Vinaya to have gone through over time. Okay, so here's the Korwat. I'll need to ask you to make that larger in order to be able to see it. And is it possible for you to also forward, say, to Ayasobana right now, so she would be able to bring that up there? Ayasobane, Venerable Kachayana is just going to forward that to you right now. And it seemed like this hasn't gone into our log, so that would be good to get it into our log, as this was Korwat that we agreed upon. It's freezing up, so it may take a little bit to do. So then this is what we had then agreed on from our discussion. One of us who is the bhikkhuni, or even in discussion with those who are not bhikkhunis, then felt like good to bring this up for discussion again and reconsider, and like to, there's a wish to modify in some way or add something that wasn't considered, or these are possibilities that we ourselves have. It's within our own rights and responsibilities with this community as bhikkhunis, those who are faithfully practicing with our discipline, both the canonical, what's been passed down, as well as the Korwat. And the Korwat, again, has two purposes. What are they? What's that? Sangha harmony, yes, absolutely. So would anyone else please name one or more of those two purposes of the core what? Rule for the what? Yes, that's right. And
Clarify things that which there's not enough detail necessarily in the.
to clarify things about which there is not enough detail in the canonical text. That's one, yes. Or maybe there's no detail. For example, gas or electric powered cars, not there. Internet, not there. Mobile phone, not. So for things that are not covered in the canonical text, then to consider the principles and the examples of what is there in the canonical text and apply them to those things that aren't there or aren't completely covered there with regards to issues that are important to us. And I know we have one outstanding that could be a really good case study for us to take a look at and to work with in this regard. The other thing is for things that are in the canonical text that may be interpreted in different ways. That's deciding our own community's interpretation about it. And again, core wat is something that is not, it doesn't become canonical. Although it's following very similar processes through which the canonical Vinaya itself developed over time. I shouldn't even say although, it is following very similar processes through which the canon developed over time, which means that just as the canon itself, we see the evidence of one precept, maybe it's just made once and that's it. But then others like revisited even several times or even again and again over time and adapted over time with further consideration. So we have, with regards to the canon itself, we don't do that anymore, but with regards to our interpretation of it and with regards to the principles and the things not covered in the canon or not fully covered in the canon, we do continue to do that ourselves. This is our core what. So, Ayasopana, do you have that now?
No,
Venerable Kachayana has forwarded it to you by email.
okay.
Yep, it's here.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. So here, number 1, reaffirming as previously established at Aranya Bodhi and clarifying for our new monastery location. If medicinal herbs come to be cut or cut down by laypersons, not at the bhikkhuni's request, or have fallen down due to other natural forces, a bhikkhuni may pick those up and bring them to the kapya bhumi. Kapya bhumi means, it's not a translation of kitchen, but our kitchen is designated as a kapya bhumi, which means a place where things may be kept by the lay community, which makes them allowable, even though it's within a monastery property, a formally designated area. And or give them to a steward. She herself should not place them in storage. If she has medical need for those herbs, she may inform a steward. If those medicinal herbs are offered to her or to the community, she or the community are allowed to take and use them without fault. I just want to recognize some other communities, their core wat might be different in this regard, or might have been in past. medical fruits such as lime or lemon or berries or other natural medicinal substances which come from plants are also included here. Scroll down. Huh? Samurai Tavira is asking, is there any kind of fruit that has no medical purpose? There's an old story about this, and maybe I'll even about the Buddha's own doctor, Jivaka, and for his test, final exam in Taxila, it's like to go out to the entire area and find any substances which do not have medical properties, and was not able to do so. So came back and informed the Besaja Guru, the medicine teacher, the doctor, teaching doctor, about it. And the teaching doctor agreed. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, good point. So number 2, reaffirming, as previously established at our old Grange Road Vihara, that's just 4 miles away up on the hill above our current monastery, and clarifying for Aranya Bodhi and our new monastery. If people make offerings of supplies, including foods and or medicines outside the monastery, and there are a shortage of bodies or hands to carry these into the monastery or hermitage kitchen, a bhikkhuni may help lift or carry the boxes and bags just to transport them. Understanding she is carrying something belonging to a layperson or the lay community with their permission to help and assist them in their generosity out of compassion. If a bhikkhuni does so, she is not excluded from receiving food or medicine offerings later made by the lay community from those boxes or bags. And the bhikkhuni's community is also not excluded. So the reason that we have this as a Korwat, and the reason we were discussing it, is because some of us had learned a different Korwat before. Like, if we did that, if we touched those, then we can't have any of that, and none of the bhikkhunis can have any of that. So there is such a Korwat that exists somewhere that some of us had learned about. And it was because of those circumstances, which seemed in past to be happening frequently, to the point of it seeming like an issue, that we discussed about this and we made this Korwat. Is there any more to it? Oh my goodness, 3. But wait, Venerable Dhammanusari was putting hands in Anjali. Yes, please.
That means if no one around, we able to have this. Inside. Yes, we but not to put it away. Just to carry.
To help carry, yes, but not to store.
Yes, thank you.
So this is something that's not really not mentioned here, but I used to years ago in the beginning of Dhammadrini. In the first few years, I had ongoing postal correspondence with Ajahn Tanisro about points of Vinaya in question. And this came up at that time. He asserted, when going on camping Tudong, which he used to do regularly with groups of people at least once or twice a year, then that he could carry the bags of supplies that were being packed along by the anagarikas or the pakao, the white-robed lay person, or the friends who were packing along supplies, that he could take a turn in carrying those. And according to some Korwat, if he did that, then he could never eat that food, and no bhikkhu could eat that food, according to some Korwat. It's not our core Wat now, and not the core Wat of Wat Metta. He asserted that he's just carrying something that belongs to a layperson with the layperson's permission, out of kindness and compassion, because they're tired and just to be helpful. And then giving it back to them, and they're not giving it to him for it to be his to own, and he's not trying to take it from them. And they may or may not offer him that food later, but they haven't done so at that time. And that he's just being helpful. And that's all, out of compassion. And so this was part of our discussion long ago. So I just share that with you because, and just, I want to recognize again, I know I've said it before, but to recognize again that I believe that different communities and even our community over time may faithfully come up with different core Wat in these regards. And that's not because they're right and we're wrong, or we're right and they're wrong. It's just because they're just faithfully engaging in this process and we're faithfully engaging in this process. And also it's not permanent. It's something, what we see the example in Vinaya is even with the Buddha. Then something was established and then something was changed. And then something was changed again and adapted. And so they were, my understanding is they were, even the Buddha himself was faithfully engaging with this process according to the arising circumstances, and that it's good and right for us to also do so, especially when it feels called for, according to our own discernment, when it feels called for. So then we come to number 3. And is this relevant to you, these things that we're covering right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing yes. Relevant? Relevant, helpful, important. Yeah, these things came up as issues for us in past so many times, and we didn't see them just going away as issues. So I imagine that there are still occasions where this may be so. So then number 3, reaffirming as previously established at our old Grange Road Vihara and clarifying for Aranya Bodhi and Monastery. If fruits fall down off of trees or bushes onto the ground, and there's an asterisk, hold on. Onto the ground, asterisk. We'll come back to the asterisk. At the monastery or hermitage, these belong to the Dhammadharani Support Foundation and community of lay supporters who have offered use of this property to the Bhikkhuni Sangha. A bhikkhuni may pick them up and bring them to the Kapya Bhumi kitchen and place them in an open, visible space there, or hand them over to a steward. She herself should not place them in storage. She herself should not ask for them to be offered to her unless she has a medical need. If she has a medical need, she may ask a steward. If she has no medical need herself, she may suggest that they be offered to the bhikkhuni's community. If those fruits are later offered by the stewards to herself and or the bhikkhuni's community, neither she nor the community are excluded from taking them. Here's the asterisk. Previous point of clarification not discussed. This is from our discussion, relating back to our discussion. So this is the day after. Our discussion was the previous night when this happened. If fruits have not yet fallen but are no longer strongly attached, that is, there is no snap or break or tear, no injury to the plant by picking them. I'm remembering one of our bhikkhunis bringing this up, and like ripe fruits, when fruits aren't ripe, then like have to snap them off. But when fruits are ripe, then they come off without, even before they fell, they come off without injuring the plant. So So Bono is the one who made the proposal, and there's an audio recording of that was made as reference. And this is already some time ago, but obviously when we were still, I remember these issues coming up a lot at our old vihara and discussing them also previously at Aranya Bodhi in previous years. And then this is the time we hadn't been at our new monastery so long, and there were fruit trees there and herbs and people bringing groceries. Please, Anagarika Pemaratana.
Okay, the kind of trees, and I don't know if this was the tree that was cut today, but the fig tree has a big tear in it on one of the branches. So all the fruits on it, if they cut that branch, the branch is cut, and they collect the fruits that are on that branch.
Anagarika Pemaratana is asking about the broken branch on the fig tree at the monastery that she saw. Yeah. And she's asking if Chui cuts that and the fruits are on it, are they allowed to collect those fruits? My understanding from this is, I think so. And if there's anybody who is a layperson at the monastery also who says, if the question is asked of them, would you make this allowable? And they make it allowable, then I think possible. So this question gets extended to a lot of other things as well. Like, for example, if a tree has been cut down or has mostly fallen or has entirely fallen, the question was brought up, but it still might have some life faculty in it. And for redwoods, my goodness, they may come up even later on. I remember this issue coming up at Tamasara, like if something has been cut down, then is it all right for the bhikkhunis, if it's a volunteers day, work project, busy bee, then for the bhikkhunis also to be like part of, then for what other people have cut down, all right to continue to cut that and process that as part of the volunteers day. I remember that question coming up. And you know, other things also, like for the soil, if someone else has dug the soil and there's a heap of earth that's there, is it all right to use the shovel if it's not harming any living beings, and to move that heap of earth and to be moving it in a wheelbarrow and this kind of thing? So these questions come up as well. I want to say there's something that I thought to mention earlier that I didn't mention, I want to come back to, and that's when this is something that I've learned as a traditional practice. And that's about when we know that a tree is going to be taken down, coming back to the Devata, and that tree is the size or larger than a human being. What I learned as a practice is that we should go there at least 24 hours beforehand, if we can, and with our mind, let the living beings there know what's going to happen, and express our compassion and our well wishes and our wish for all the living beings who are there to be free from harm, and ask them to please listen and understand our good hearts and to our wish that they be free from harm. So to go there like at least 24 hours beforehand and really pervade that area with those thoughts and that heart, particularly, I mean, not necessarily everywhere, but particularly if that's on the monastery property or hermitage property, as much as possible, whenever possible. I know for Venerable Kachayana, then when Venerable Metajivi was here, then I just heard, would you like to speak to that? Venerable Kachayana is saying that Venerable Metajivi did just an amazing job of chanting for the trees. I heard afterwards later on, and Venerable Kachayana said we were talking about some circumstance where we knew some tree work was going to happen. I was asking Venerable Kachayana or others to go there, and Venerable Kachayana is like, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do it as good as Venerable Metajivi. But you don't have to be a fantastic chanter. It's true. I think I understand you were there, and it felt like something really meaningful and considerate and caring was happening very sincerely at that time. I understand that. And we also can do that just in our minds and from our hearts. Yeah. So this is what I've learned in this regard, that this practice has been passed down. That we should do this. Yes, please. Anagarika Pemarachana is a really long driving day, and also when we talked about it before, we did say that she can go whenever she wishes to. She's not obligated to stay today because we know there's a long driving day, and that there's, oh my goodness, we all have been working very hard. And I think we shouldn't continue on so much longer, but I'd like to check in on this particular topic if there are more outstanding questions. And so there's one that, I'm sorry, I just heard your voice start, and I just want to recognize, I want you to be able to speak very soon, and I just want to recognize that there was a question that came up during the time that Ayasuchita was with us with regards to kapia and vegetables and fruits and cooking, food preparations. So please, just because I just remembered that, so I'm not going to go into it right now, but just as a bookmark. Please go ahead, Ai.
Well, with respect to cooking, there's the other rule about rice and grains. And I don't know if there's enough time to bring that rule out.
Thank you. I hope so. I had hoped so for today, and shall we just take a look at it?
Which one is it now, Susan?
Sue gets to it first.
My memory is there's but there is Patimokkha, and then also in the Kandakas, is it in the Chulavagga Kandaka, there's also a relevant section. It might be that we
7.
just look at this a little bit now, and that we come back to this later. Because all these things, they're really important. They're things that come up in our life so often.
This is one that's only for bhikkhunis, not for bhikkhus. It's number 7 in the Pachitya, Bhikkhuni Pachitya.
Well, so we're waiting for number 7 to load here. The training rule on raw grain. Can you move it down just a little? No, the other down. Okay. No, up. Thank you. Okay. So this is in the subchapter. This is in the subchapter on garlic, Lasunavaga, which I know there is interest in that too. And the Sikapada precept, here it says training rule on raw grain. Amaka Danya. What's Danya? Danya. Grain, yes. And Amaka, not made dead. not dead. Yeah, not, huh? Raw. Um, and raw grain was considered to be, I mean, there are different ways that grain can be processed. And my I'm so surprised that I don't know better about this, having lived in the wheat growing capital of the world, Devonport, Washington, and where my major was agricultural mechanics because I couldn't get wood shop and the only other thing was home ec. But the so someone who knows better can tell me, but my understanding is that there's a way that grain is traditionally processed where the grain may be like viable as seeds still, or then there's a level of processing where it's can no longer grow and is no longer viable to grow grain out of it anymore. And I'm not remembering what the proper terminology is for that, but it's like there's the germ and does anybody know? Yes. So, Venerable Dhammanusari says if the rice grain has the golden skin, it can still grow. So I'm not sure if that's called then being husked. Excuse me for having the mic so close and saying something with such strongly breathy sounds. But let's take a look. At one time, the Buddha was staying at Savatthi in Anathapindika's monastery. Anathapindikasa Arame. It was the harvest season. At that time, the bhikkhunis had asked for raw grain. Vinyapetwa. They made it known that they wanted it, which they then carried to town. At the town gate, they were detained and told, Venerables, give a share. After being released, they went to the Bhikkhuni Upasaya. The Bhikkhuni Upasaya. Then here, this is the name of a common name, Upasaya, for a place that bhikkhunis were living that was also connected to a bhikkhu's monastery. I mean, it may be a separate location, but connected. Bhikkhuni upasaya gantva bhikkhuninang etamatang arochesum. So they went there and they said what happened. And then this is a stuck phrase, which has got ... in pay, which means etc. And so on here, the PE. And so then this is a phrase that's repeated again and again. There were bhikkhunis who were of few desires who then blamed and criticized them. Oh. That's such a good question. Let's talk about that on another occasion. That's really good for good discussion for our Vassa also, especially. And there are other things that I see come up like, wow, what we're studying. And then here we see the Buddha saying like, Moga Purisa, stupid man, right? And what? Oh, it means ignorant. And then chastising. And then we find some things even, I can mention about this, then we had a discussion about it in our Western Buddhist Monastic Conference years ago, because in some of the Chinese texts, then the words that were used in translating that verbal reprimand were translated in a way that it made it seem like that was meant to be a physical punishment. And then there actually was physical punishment for the things in some of the Chinese monasteries following those translations. So one great thing about the accessibility of the text these days and the comparative Vinaya studies is then this was brought to light that is absolutely not mentioned here that the Buddha was giving any physical punishment, not. So that's something so helpful coming out of these studies. And translation, oh my goodness, to take so much care. Anagarika Pemaratana, go well. Thank you for being here so much. I really appreciate your interest and also your contribution to this. And we should also wrap up soon. So let's scroll down here and then we find this will affect people's confidence, ... And this is the place where this thing that you should fill in goes in here that I want to ask you about in our next session. Check back in with you. And so this is just a heads up, not being tested on it right now, but coming up because it's important. It's repeated every time, and it's we need to be able to fill in those ... ourselves when we see this. We need to know clearly what they are. And so then, final ruling. Would you mind to scroll a little bit? Yapana bhikkhuni. Amakatanyang winyatwawa. This, I was going to try, but maybe I have to have Ayasobana do it. I remember practicing with this before, and this part was particularly hard. Winyatwawa, winyapetwawa, pajitwawa, pajapetwawa, kotetwawa, kotapetwawa, pachitwa, pachapetwawa, bunjeya, consumes it, pachitya. Okay, so it says if a bhikkhuni has someone else ask for raw grain, or she roasts it, or has it roasted, or she pounds it, or has it pounded, or she cooks it, or has it cooked, and she then eats it. That's the bunjeya. She commits an offense entailing confession, pachitya. So first thing here is the making it known that one wishes for this, or getting someone else to do so. And then there's the roasting, cooking, pounding, pounding was how they took the husk off, right? Which is what makes it so it goes from being something that can grow to something that can't grow anymore. Also, the roasting is something that it goes from being something that can grow to something that can't grow anymore. So roasting, pounding, cooking. So she has that done, or she directs that should be done when she had asked for it or asked someone else to get that raw grain. She herself had done so. So let's look at the definition.
Aye.
Bhikkhuni. Yes? Yes, I.
This seems to say, I thought this meant that if any one of these conditions would constitute the offense. So even if she didn't ask for it, if she roasted it or pounded it, she still would have the offense. That the asking for is not a precondition to make the other things an offense, but that any one of these elements was an offense.
Thank you for mentioning that, So indeed here it's all between all of these words here, there's a V long A, wa, which means what? Or, yes. It can sometimes also mean and. It's like and/or, and or, but it's different than just and, which is cha, just CA. It's different than that. So it's like and or. And yes, there is that way of reading this that Ayasobana mentioned. Let's look down. So a bhikkhuni is one who has received full ordination through a legal procedure consisting of 1 motion and 3 announcements. By the way, for those studying Vinaya, contemplating deeply, here it says 1 motion and 3 announcements. Whereas in the commentary it mentions 2 times 4 equals 8 as defining bhikkhuni ordination. So I'll just say the commentary is defining bhikkhuni ordination differently than this canonical text right here. Just as a kind of a bookmark or a flag. Just mention that. For me, that's interesting. It might not be interesting for others. Anyway, consisting of 1 motion and 3 announcements that's irreversible and fit to stand. That's part of what I was reciting actually during your ordination. Akupena tanarahena upasampade mati. And then raw grain, then it mentions rice, barley, wheat, millet, wild gram, kodo millet. My understanding is that extends to basically any kind of raw grain. And then Vinyatvati, she asks herself. Vinyapetvati, she gets someone else to ask for it. And then roasting. Bhajitvati, Bhajapetvati gets someone else to roast it for her. Pounds. Kotetwati has it pounded. Kotapetwati cooks. Here's a good word for you in Pali. What's cooks?
Pachati, meaning pachitva.
Pachitva. Pachitva, yes. To cook. Pachitvati. Or has it cooked? Pachapetvati. She gets someone else to cook it. That doesn't mean that someone else happens to cook it and offer it. That means she gets someone to do that. Means at her direction, at her command. And then, if she accepts it with the intention of eating it, she commits an offense of wrong conduct. Bunjisami means, bunjisamiti means, I will eat it, quote unquote. Patiganhati, apatitukatasa. For every mouthful, she commits an offense entailing pachitya. There is no offense if she does it because she's sick. Oh, there's a surprise, yeah? No, not? Abhata pachaya. Abhata means sick. If she asks for vegetables, what's that? Instead, right? Venerable Kachayana says that means instead, not in addition to, right? You have a good mind for these things. You're like Upali and you and Patachara and you maybe having good discussions. Right, here's a good question because it's absolutely, it mentions here that if she does this and then eats it and yeah, and then this to my mind actually connects to this other place that I was talking about. I feel like it's got too late and so we may not go look at that. That's in the Kandakas. That may be good to consider and discuss subsequently. So we've almost come down to the end here. Insanity is there too, as it always is. There's an exemption for the first offender. Adhikamika. The first one to do it. And Ummatikaya. Ummatika is one who is out of their right mind. Muddled, their mindfulness is muddled. And what's this here about the vegetables?
Aye,
Why? Yes,
does
yes,
this mean
I.
if there is some kind of a vegetable which is not a grain and is not capable of growing, that the bhikkhuni may cook it?
Well, this is the question that I had thought to come back to again later, which I feel like we may be just too tired. I'll just speak for myself personally. I may be too tired at this point. I know it seems so unusual for me to say that, as well as compassion for others. But yeah, like, what about if it's a vegetable and it has been copied? What about that? This is the question that was coming up earlier than with Ayasuchita, and may come up with some others under other circumstances, might have come up or maybe would come up. And I feel like there's some more here. We read through this. That's good. We made it through this far. And there's a little more, and I'm feeling like not to push through to the little more at this time. This is one topic that connects to a whole bunch of topics. And then there are a few others as well that are good for us to go over. But would you be all right if we said going this far is good enough for now, for tonight? We now have 6 bhikkhunis. 6 bhikkhunis in our Vassa. We have entered Vassa together. I'm happy and rejoicing about that. Hopefully the talk for UTBSI is uploading. We need to go check and see. Hopefully. And thank you very much to everyone for your contribution. I think here, we're questioning whether we should call this number 5 or number 7, and I'd like to call it number 7 because we did have a number 5 and a number 6 already, and we acknowledged what we went over during those study sessions. So I think let this conclude our 2022 Vassa Vinaya Studies session number 7. Recognizing that there is more in this very useful and interesting topic. And also we do need to care for any medicines, tonics, need to come back to this. These are just things to note. It's like action items, follow-up items. And also there was mention about a Korowat item outstanding that could perhaps be a good case study. And I'd like for those who may know this Korowat item somewhat, as Sopananaya Brahmawada particularly, to consider, would you be happy for this to come up as a case study for us to work with together as a real live case study? Or would you rather that we deal with it ourselves? But I need to recognize now we have 6 bhikkhunis in our community. So probably it's just a matter of, would it be only for bhikkhunis, or would we allow others who are joining in our Vinaya studies to be able to witness and learn from that process together? This is the question. You don't need to answer right now, but I'm interested in your thoughts about this. I feel like it could possibly be nice to work with as a real live case study. So let me know later your thoughts about this. And thank you very much to everyone for your patient listening, for your contributions, for for your study, and most of all, just for living the holy life together in our world with so many different kinds of various things going on. I just feel like it's like the water purifying gem amidst the cloudy water, some kind of feeling like this in my heart, together with all of you, and just deeply, deeply appreciate.
Sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu.
I'd like to invite Venerable Kachayana to, or someone at the monastery. Would you be happy to Arahang? And we'll join in with you together. May I invite you?
yes, together.
Araham Samma
Poto Bhagawan Buddhang Bhagawantang Abhivadimi. Bhagavata Dhammam Dhammam Namasa. Bhagavato Sawaka Sangham Namah. Sukho Bhutanang Upato Sukha Sadhamade Sana Sukho Sanghasa Samagi Samakanang Tapo Sukhom. I'd like to also share blessings with our dear Dhamma friend Jeannie, and share blessings with our dear Dhamma friend Diane and Cassidy, and anyone and everyone who could receive and benefit from the blessings of our harmonious gathering, contemplating Dhamma and Vinaya together in the peaceful night in our forest hermitage and at our monastery together here. May it be a blessing for all beings in our whole area and all the devatas and everyone who can benefit.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
And for anyone who's up at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning and would like to see Venerable Dhammananda Terry and Venerable Yufat Viditadhamma Terry and Ayasantini Terry and Bhante Sumita and others, including hopefully my recording, on live for the Living Heritage International Bhikkhuni Day Program, UTBSI, then you're welcome to, if you wish. Good night. May you have every good blessing.